Hello and welcome. I want to talk about the Unity Blobshadows a bit here. I want to give this sphere and plane an individual shadow. We start with dragging two blob shadows into the scene. Just for the records, the positions of our sphere and our airplane. Go to Project, open the blob shadow and drag a blob shadow projector into the hierarchy. Then let's rename it. Makes it easier to separate the stuff. Blob shadows gets unfortunately imported with very odd values. So we need to reposition and re-rotate them. Interesting for us is the rotation around the x-axis. Shadows should point downwards. At the moment our shadow points sidewards. So I rotate it to 90 degrees now. This was the first shadow, now follows the second shadow. So let's pull another blob shadow projector into the scene. Then let's rename it again. And finally bring it to its correct position and rotation. In the shadow material you can see two textures. The far-off texture defines how far away the shadow is still visible. The cookie texture is your shadow texture. As you can see, the shadow gets thrown by a cone shape, means the farther away, the bigger the shadow gets. Let's change this so that our shadow has always the same size. For this you need to tick orthographic. As you can see, our shadow not only shadows the ground, but it also shadows our object. So this is the next thing we need to change, so that our object doesn't get shadow. We need to create a new layer for that. So go to Layer, grab one of the user layers and write a name behind it. I have named my new layer No Shadow. And now I put every object into this layer that shouldn't get affected by a shadow. My airplane is made of two sub-objects, so I get a warning here. I want of course to exclude the whole plane from shadowing, so I click Yes, Change Children. Next thing is to tell the blob shadows which layers should be ignored. This can be found here downwards under Ignore Layers. We change this from Nothing to No Shadow. Don't forget the second blob shadow. And on we go. At the moment both objects have the same shadow. But I would love to have an airplane shadow for my airplane, and not this round shadow. I have prepared a texture for this purpose. It is a simple grayscale bitmap. And now I drag this texture into the blobshadow folder. You should think that you could work with two separated objects independently, but this is unfortunately not the case. Both blobshadows share the same material, and so when we change the texture at one blobshadow, we change also the texture at the other blobshadow. Let's switch this back. What we need to do is to create a new material. Go to Assets, Create Material. Then we change the shader from diffuse to FX, project to multiply. This is the shader for the blob shadow. As you can see, we have our two slots back for our two textures. In the first slot we put our airplane texture, and in the second slot we put again the fall-off texture. While at it, I rename my material and put it into the blob shadows folder. Blob shadow and new material are still disconnected. That's what we're gonna do now. We connect them. This is the part where I always get lost with searching. You can finally find it in Material, and here we change from Shadow Material to our Shadow Airplane Material. Blobshadow and new material are finally connected, but we still see nothing. What we need to do is to select our airplane shadow texture and change some import settings. Tick Build Alpha from Grayscale and click at the Apply button. Now finally our shadow has arrived, but it is tiled across the whole scene. This is a small fix. Change the wrap mode from repeat to clamp. Last step missing is to resize the shadow. I change the orthographic values here until it fits. We have reached the end of our little tutorial here. Another chapter is how to connect the blob shadows with the objects. Easiest method is to make the blob shadow a child to the objects.